Hello everyone, this is Dev Tips, and I is Travis. This is the 5th video in a series called CSS Basics. So if you remember, 2 weeks ago we talked about selectors, and then last week we jumped into properties and values, which together both make a style. So if you haven't already seen those videos, or if you need a quick refresh, I recommend going and watch them now as they serve for a foundation of what we're talking about today. If you have already seen those videos, yeah man, that's what I'm saying! Give me that. So today we're going to revisit selectors and talk about a few more advanced ways to use them. So real quickly, let's review those other selectors that we learned. The first one was a tag, in this case an anchor. The second one is a class selector. If we throw a dot in front of the class name, it selects any element that has that class on it. And the third one is an ID selector. If you throw a hash in front of the ID name of any element on the page, that will be selected by this selector. Now to show examples, I have this page set up with some simple markup, and we can see that every anchor here gets the color of red on it. And let's also do a text transform uppercase. Okay, so all of the anchors have a red color and are uppercased, and the container box here has an orange border around it, and then there's a UL here which has an ID of main list, and we'll put a gray background on that. This is just a simple example of what we've already learned. Now I just reviewed these real quickly because these are building blocks of more advanced uses. Okay, in our markup we have a bunch of anchor tags, but we also have a strong tag down here. You can apply a style to more than one selector at a time. It's easy, you just list them out and then separate each selector with a comma like this. Now the anchor and the strong will both be turned red. This is really helpful if you want to apply some common styles to a wide range of HTML elements. Let's say, for example, you want to add some margin on the bottom of all of your headings, paragraphs, and list items. And instead of writing 3 separate styles, you can write one style with 3 selectors and they will all inherit those same styles. Or you could just use this guy and go balls to the walls crazy and select everything. This is called an all selector. This little asterisk selects everything. So this right here will select everything and make the margin and padding zeroed out. You may see this used when somebody wants to reset the styles of their browser. You see all of the browsers come with default styles. For example, they have every page has a white background, black text, and paragraphs have some margin around them by default. List items have margin on the left. So if you want to zero all that out, you just throw it under an all selector or the asterisk. Next is a descendant selector. You can narrow down the selection by choosing children or descendants of other elements in the DOM. You remember the DOM, right? The document object model? The DOM is how things are organized, or in other words, the relationship that each element has with each other. If you need a refresher on the DOM, check out this video right here. This is from our series of HTML basics where we talk about the DOM. It's really important to understand. Keeping in mind that the browser reads your selectors from right to left, writing a descendant selector is easy. You put a space between the child and its parent, LI space A, and then the color red. This will make all the anchor tags red, as long as they are children of list items. Now you see how understanding the DOM is important. We can take this even further and say that this color gets applied to only anchors in list items that are children of other list items. This selector then becomes more specific to the point of excluding this other anchor here, as it is only a child of one list item and not nested in 2 of them. Mind blown, right? I know, let's continue. We can use that same idea of a descendant selector to say that all ULs inside of this container class get a red border around them. Building on that, if we use the direct descendant selector, it will only select direct children, or in other words, children that are nested only one layer deep in the DOM. To write that, we use a greater than symbol between the two selectors. Notice that the second UL there does not inherit the style. We can select the element that is immediately preceded by the former element by using the adjacent selector, UL plus P color red. In this case, only the first paragraph after each UL will have red text. Just this one right here. While the adjacent selector selects only one element following the former, the sibling combinator element selects any matching element following the former element. So you write it with the tilde. In this example, we'll write UL tilde P color red. Now, any paragraph following the UL will get that color red. But notice that that first P, which is above the UL, does not inherit the color. Okay, let's switch gears up a little bit and talk about pseudo-selectors. That's right, pseudo-selectors. These pseudo-selectors allow you to target elements only when they're in a specific state. For example, when an anchor tag is being hovered over. We write this by using a colon. So A colon hover, and then let's just take the underline off while it's being hovered. And then watch, when we hover over it, that underline just disappears. You can use these to select links that have been visited or that are active, which means they're currently being pressed down by the user at the moment. Or even select a text box when it's in the state of being focused, or in other words, when the cursor is blinking inside of it. So for that, we're going to write text area and then the colon focus, and then let's take that blurry blue off, and that's called an outline, and outline none. Okay, and then we'll just add a blue border to it. And we see that when we insert our cursor inside, we have a nice crisp blue border instead of that funky default blur. Okay, let's take these ideas and put them together to make something really cool. You'll see a lot of people use JavaScript for this, but it's not really necessary if you know what you're doing with CSS. So I have two elements in my markup right here. One is called Pika, and it's an anchor tag, and the other one is called Boo. So what I want to happen is when I hover over Pika, I want Boo to show up, kind of like a tooltip or something like that. First, let me throw some styles on Boo so it actually is visible. I'm going to say height 200 pixels with 200 pixels. Background can be pink, and let's round off those corners. Let me center the text here and vertically too. So let's hide it now. Display none. Oh, now for the fun part. I want to combine this pseudo selector with an adjacent selector to say that when somebody hovers over Pika, the next element that matches it, called Boo, will show up in the DOM. It will be displayed. So I write class of Pika hover, the adjacent element with the class of Boo gets a display block. And if we run over there and hover over, see, it shows up. Wow, that is so cool. We didn't use any JavaScript. It's way lighter and faster for your browser to use. And it was just really simple CSS, 2 selectors and 2 lines of markup. Amazing. And people use JavaScript to do these tooltips still. Okay, before we end, I want to show you one more cool pseudo selector that will allow you to select an element in a range of elements based on its position in that lineup, in the range. If I write P that's a paragraph tag, colon, first child, and then make the color red. I can see over here, and the result is only that first paragraph turns red. I can do other things too, like last of type, and that takes the last of the type of this P and turns it red. I can even choose a specific number amongst all of the paragraphs that are siblings there. So I say nth child, let's say 3, so that selects the third paragraph and turns it red. Let me add a few more paragraphs to make this more impactful. Okay, so now the fourth paragraph, or number 5. So this is really easy to select any element in a range of elements. We can take this even further and just write the word odd, and all of the odd elements are highlighted in red now, or even, of course, that works too. We can even do a little bit of math in here. So like we say, the number multiplied by 3, so every third element gets this style applied, or every third element starting in -1 position. So we're going to start with here and just have everything. So there's a lot of flexibility with this, like counting whatever class of pseudo selector. Selectors can be super powerful if you know what you're using, which is like my main point of this whole video, that it's not what you know, it's how well you know how to use what you know. Yeah. So, which kind of brings us up to our next video. We're going to talk about specificity, something you don't hear a ton about because a lot of people ignore it because it's maybe a little complicated. But it's super fun, and it's super helpful to figure out like what exactly is happening in your style sheets. So thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for subscribing. If you learned something today, please share this video with your friend. And I really appreciate all of your comments, because that makes me feel like you guys are getting something out of it, and it gives me those fuzzies, warm, good feels.
I subscribe to Dev Tips and I like it. These codes I learned are fantastic. I subscribe to Dev Tips and I like it. These codes make me feel so fantastic. They feel so wrong, they feel so right. I'm learning the internet code tonight. Ah, na 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 da. Ma pa 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 da 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 da. Ah, go da da. You're doing the subscribe to Dev Tips. Woo!